Now, the one question that's crossed the minds of people who are tracking the story is this, that when, on the day that Sushant died, there was no response from inside the room where he was resting, and there was no action which was visible. Why didn't the staff just break down the door? Now, that is a very important question. We showed you on India Today how Siddharth Patani called a locksmith, and the locksmith was called in. He was asked to open the door. He was paid 2,000 rupees and quickly sent away. But why didn't they just do the most obvious thing, break open the door, press the alarm bell? Well, it turns out that the cook of Sushant Singh Rajput has told the Mumbai police that he very often would roll up a marijuana cigarette for Sushant Singh Rajput, and which is why when the door didn't open, the cook thought that maybe his bosses just smoked out and therefore not opening the door, and therefore he didn't think it was really a very big deal. Now, this piece of startling information puts the sequence of events in a very different context from what was being spoken of in the public domain so far. So we get you this exclusive report filed by our Mumbai bureau.
A star on the rise. A shocking death. And a sordid saga. As probe deepens into the death of Sushant Singh Rajput, India Today accesses a sensational inside scoop of Sushant's personal life. Actor's housekeeper Neeraj Singh, in an statement to Mumbai police, has spilled the beans on what happened just days before Sushant's death. Neeraj claims that he had rolled marijuana cigarettes for Sushant 2 days before the actor died. And after his death, when he saw the box which contained the drugs, it was empty. The man, Neeraj Singh, who is making this claim, was last to Sushant alive and the first to see him dead.
14 को मॉर्निंग को 14 जून को वो 6 बजे उठे थे उस दिन, तो फिर वो आए 8 बजे के आसपास, तो मैं उनके गेट से सफाई कर रहा था, तो सर बाहर निकले जैसे गेट से बिल्कुल, तो सर ने मेरे को बोला नीरज मुझे ठंडा पानी ला के दो। मैंने कहा ओके सर। मैं फटाफट भागता हुआ गया, मैं ठंडा पानी लेके आया, ठंडा पानी उनको दिया। देने के बाद सर ने पानी पिया, तो जस्ट मुझे गिलास दिया, तो देने के बाद बोला सब ठीक है ना, मामला नीचे। मैंने कहा हाँ सर सब कुछ ठीक है, ओके। हल्का फेस में स्माइल दिया, तो उसके बाद वो रूम पे चले गए।
On July 31st, when we spoke to Neeraj, he narrated what exactly happened on June 8th, the day when Riya left Sushant's apartment.
मेरे को बोला उन्होंने, मेरे को कपड़े पैक कर दो, ये सूटकेस में डाल दो और नीचे गेट पे छोड़ दो। मैंने कहा ठीक है, तो जैसा बोलते हम वैसा करते हैं। कपड़े डाल दिया हमने, मैंने पैक करके, और कपड़े भी थे उनके। उन्होंने बोला मैं बाद में आके लूँगी, ये कपड़े डाल मतलब डाल के नीचे रख दिए, तो मैंने पैक करके यहाँ रख दिया, तो मैंने चली गई थी।
In his statement to Mumbai police, Neeraj Singh has revealed that the actor would host parties once or twice every week at his residence where alcohol was consumed and marijuana cigarettes were smoked. Samuel Haukip was the person who would roll marijuana cigarettes for the late actor. In the last 3 days, Neeraj Singh had rolled marijuana cigarettes for the actor, and these were kept in a cigarette box kept in a cupboard near the staircase. After the actor's death, this cigarette box was found empty. India Today has accessed the statement exclusively, and the statement also reveals that Riya Chakravarti was very angry on June 8th when she asked Neeraj to pack her bags and left with her brother Shovik. Neeraj, in an interview to India Today, had not revealed this information, which has been accessed by India Today in a statement given to Mumbai police. With camera person Sachin Sawant and Sahil Joshi, this is Divyesh Singh in Mumbai for India Today.
Joining us at this time is Monish Pandey. He tracks the Central Bureau of Investigation for us. He's flown in from Delhi to Mumbai with the CBI team. And also with us is Divyesh Singh. He is our crime correspondent in Mumbai and has been tracking the Mumbai police's investigation very closely. Now, this is very explosive. The details that you've just put out on India Today, Divyesh, explain more about the cook's testimony, the cook's answers to the Mumbai police, because he's going to be one of the people who the CBI is looking at very, very closely. And this answers some of the questions that people have had in their mind, that if you got a door that's locked, nobody's opening, why don't you just barge in? The cook says that he rolled up 3 joints and he thought that Sushant Singh Rajput was just smoked out, which is not something that he got alarmed by, which probably suggests that this has been something that had been a pattern or a trend. Tell me more about what's in that report that you've accessed exclusively, Divyesh.
Yes, Rahul, we have this statement of Neeraj Singh that he's given to Mumbai police, and in this statement he's said in detail on what happened on 14th of June. He's revealed everything on what happened there since morning. He talks about Sushant waking up, then he asked for water, he serves him juice, coconut water, and Sushant also asked for some bananas, which was served by Keshav. Then they went to his room upstairs. Remember, this was a duplex flat. They went to his room upstairs an hour later, a few hours later, at around 10 a.m. to ask what should be cooked for lunch. But Sushant didn't respond. And then Siddharth Pithani tried calling Sushant. Siddharth Pithani's calls went unanswered. Knocks by Keshav, Dipesh and Neeraj went unanswered, after which Siddharth contacted Meetu, who's the sister of Sushant Singh Rajput, who was at the flat till 12th of June but had left because her daughter was alone. They contacted Meetu and informed her about Sushant not responding to the knocks and calls, after which they also contacted a key maker, a locksmith, who was contacted by Siddharth Pithani, and this locksmith was asked to open the door, though it was taking some time, so they asked him to break open the lock, after which he was not allowed to see inside. And then Siddharth Pithani saw Sushant and he came out in shock, after which Neeraj followed him, and followed by Dipesh and Keshav. They found that Sushant was hanging from the ceiling fan. His legs were on one side of the bed, while his face was facing the window. The room was completely dark and the air conditioning was on inside the room. He had hung himself with a kurta of Fab India make, and he had similar 3 or 4 kurtas which he would use generally while performing puja. Neeraj has also shared about what happened on 8th of June. 8th of June, he's revealed that on 8th of June, Riya was visibly very angry while Sushant was seated inside the room. Riya told him to pack her bags and pick up clothes from one of the cupboards, while she told him that she would collect clothes kept in the other cupboard while she comes next time. And she left with Shovik, her brother, who had come to pick her up. And after that, next day, Meetu Didi arrived. Meetu Singh is Sushant's sister. She arrived next day, and Sushant would have lunch with Meetu Didi. But when Meetu Didi left on 12th of June, after that, Sushant would go and spend time on terrace. He would on 13th of June, he did not have dinner. He just had mango shake and slept. And then on 14th of June, he woke up at 7 a.m., asked Neeraj whether everything was fine in the hall, to which Neeraj replied that everything was fine. He asked for a glass of chilled water, coconut water and a juice, and also bananas, which was served to him later. So, Rahul, this statement also brings to light a lot of details on what was happening inside Sushant's flat. Neeraj has also explained about the earlier flat, Capri Heights, located in Pali Hill, which they suspected was haunted. Neeraj explains that Sushant had in fact shifted from Capri Heights flat to Waterstones Club, which is located in Mumbai itself, and was not staying inside the flat. We also saw that a lot of transactions had been seen in his bank transactions, and that is why Sushant, who felt that the house was haunted, he had shifted to Waterstones Club. Rahul?
Okay, so thanks Divyesh for that update. Now what also becomes very important is the viscera and the autopsy report, which is now going to be looked at afresh, because there have been charges leveled and questions asked about whether Sushant was poisoned. So The CBI team is looking at the autopsy and viscera report. Here is a quick look at what we know about what's in these autopsy and viscera reports so far.
Numerous twists. Several conspiracy theories. And the mysterious death of a Bollywood actor. Just 48 hours after taking over probe, the Central Bureau of Investigation is at the forefront to solve the biggest mystery of the decade. And the focus is now on Sushant Singh Rajput's post-mortem and viscera report. Viscera report of the late actor is under scrutiny. Why is the viscera report crucial? This report and the samples preserved in the lab will tell whether poison, suspicious medicine or any other substance was given to Sushant Singh Rajput.
While Mumbai police, after its initial probe, has debunked the poison conspiracy theory, the CBI will look into again and seek the opinion of Dr. Sudhir Gupta of AIIMS, Delhi.
Why would you think that there's no timestamp on the autopsy?
Let me examine now. I have been assigned by CBI to examine all the things. After examining, going through detail, I can say anything. I will speak to doctors also why they are done so. So what is their answer? Let me hear them and I can give any comment.
So, but just wanting to understand, why are you saying this is a hard fact of the case? Like usually,
it's a written document, no, where the column of types is death is empty, blank. So they have to give any answer. The police should take second opinion from them.
Which they did not.
If they didn't, if there's something missing, then they have to take second opinion from doctors, no.
The preliminary autopsy report given by the Cooper Hospital in Bombay had no timestamp, which is now raising several questions. Why did the report have the doctor's signature but not the timestamp? Did the team of doctors that conducted Sushant's autopsy overlook crucial details? What time was Sushant's body brought in? What time was the autopsy completed? And what time was the body sent to the mortuary? The probe agency is all set to put forth direct questions to the team of doctors at the Cooper Hospital that conducted the post-mortem. The CBI will also probe if all columns of the post-mortem report were filled properly and whether or not the cause of death and injuries were mentioned. Another key element that the SIT has as its focus is the autopsy video. Yes, following procedure, Sushant's autopsy was recorded on a camera, and every second of that video will now be carefully analyzed by probe officers and team of AIIMS doctors. What step will the CBI take next depends on the analysis of the viscera report, the preliminary autopsy report and the autopsy video.
After the detailed study of postmortem and viscera report, all indications are that it will conclusively prove whether this is case of suicide or murder.
With Munish Pandey and Shams Tahir Khan in Mumbai, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining us live on the Newstrack tonight is Navneet Vasan, former Joint Director of the Central Bureau of Investigation. We've got Dhanraj Vanjari, former police officer of the Mumbai Police. We've got Kumar Vikram Singh, he's the chairperson of the Detectives Association of India. We've got Ganesh Hirvarkar, he's a friend of Sushant Singh Rajput. And Meghna Pant is an author and columnist. I want to go across to Navneet Vasan first because as a highly reputed CBI officer who's tracked this many such cases, Mr. Vasan, what's your sense of the CBI's key priorities when all these high-profile teams from the CBI enter a case which is being tracked as widely nationally as the SSR case, and they come in at a time when so many weeks have passed? What are the things that you think the CBI officials have been focusing on over the past 48 hours in their first 2 days as they sink their teeth into this case?
See, their first priority will be to come to a preliminary conclusion whether the evidence available leads to a hypothesis that it was a suicide or it was unnatural death and not suicide. That's the most important thing for them to proceed further. So therefore, they are trying to recreate the scene, taking help of the forensic doctors, that the way whatever evidence has been told, because I understand no photographs are available when the body was alleged to have been found hanging. So they have a challenge there. So they need to check with the people who were present in the house and who were the first people who went into the room and saw him hanging, if it is correctly being narrated by those people. Now, if they find there are some discrepancy in their description and whatever scientific conclusion they come after recreating the scene, then they have to work on other theories, whether the death was caused by somebody, whether it was murder or it was something else. So they will have to look for those cases. So they need to examine witnesses. They need to examine the doctors who conducted postmortem, because those are people who would have they would have come to some initial conclusion, if not the final, because many a times in such cases, the final conclusion is drawn only after Vishra report is available and some other detailed analysis is done.
So try and explain to our viewers, Mr. Vasan, when you go into a case like this, what are the different kinds of forensic experts who will be trying to help recreate the scene of the crime? What's the role that each one would be playing in trying to determine what could have happened? And how will they potentially come to the conclusion of whether he committed suicide himself, as has been said so far, or whether somebody murdered him?
You see, as you are aware, and your viewers will be aware, that CBI has already formed a team of 4 doctors being led by the forensic professor from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Now, these professors and doctors from All India Institute of Medical Sciences or from some other institute are supported by forensic scientists who will involve some technicians, some helpers, people who create a dummy body of the same height, same weight, and who will try and help these doctors to recreate the scene. And after that, the postmortem report, which is now available from Cooper Hospital, that report will be analyzed by these doctors, and they will prepare a questionnaire to be asked to the doctors who actually conducted the postmortem. If there is something missing, they will put question to them that why they have not recorded their findings on particular aspects of during the postmortem. Now, as it's being told that the time of death has not been mentioned, of course, time of death in many cases cannot be mentioned, but approximately they will mention that it could have happened 4 hours before or 8 hours before or between 8 to 12 hours before.
8 hours before.
In case
no, so here's what I know. The doctors have said that the time of death was between 10 to 12 hours before the postmortem. The postmortem happened at 11:30 p.m. at night. So they're saying 11:30 p.m. So they're saying about 10 to 12 hours before the postmortem. So must have been early in the morning. That's what the Mumbai police is saying so far. But the CBI needs to examine this itself.
Okay, that will be available in any case in postmortem report, because I have not seen the postmortem report and I am not aware of that. So after this is done, then CBI will definitely get some leads which they have to follow and examine witnesses, especially now since there is an FIR which was registered in Patna and transferred to CBI now, that the family has made some allegations. So all those allegations, the CBI will also examine witnesses, family members who have raised the allegation as to what material they have got to raise those allegations, and if those allegations are supported by some documents.
Now tell me this, Mr. Vasan, what do you make of what we just heard from the Mumbai police? That report that Devesh Singh put out, that Neeraj, the cook, says that the reason they didn't bang the door open, they didn't think something was amiss, because he'd rolled up some joints, he'd given 3 joints to him, and those joints weren't there when he saw them, so which potentially suggests, and even though that will probably come out in a Vishra report, will it? You tell me that. that's the reason why they didn't bang the door open and go in, because it suggests that that's the way it was in that particular household. So what are you making of this piece of information that's just emerged?
See, this is a very important piece of information, but again, I will reiterate that it is too early for any one of us to come to any conclusion, definite conclusion on that. Because now this is a statement by a helper or by a help in the household who says he used to roll up marijuana cigarettes or something. Now it has to be verified, because that empty packet will be available. Whether actually what statement he is making is correct can be verified, can be ascertained by examining that empty packet of cigarettes. So all this is too early to come to any definite conclusion. But at the same time, these are
plus I suppose, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, won't it be that if he had those joints, that some trace of those joints will be found in the viscera sample? Is that the case or not?
I think I will not be able to answer that question, but certainly at the empty cigarette packet, it can be ascertained forensically whether that cigarette packet used to store such kind of cigarettes. Regarding the marijuana to be found in viscera sample, could be possible, but I think it is only a forensic doctor who can throw definite light on this aspect.
Okay, I understand. Dhanraj Vanjari, former Mumbai police official, what do you make of what the cook has just told the Mumbai police in that question and answer that happened? Does that at all explain why they didn't break the door, go in, because they thought maybe their boss had his joints and therefore was resting and hadn't recovered and come out just yet?
I think we need to corroborate the statement given by the cook with the statements of some other connecting witnesses, and also circumstantially we should see that how much value of truthfulness is there in his statement. And if it is so, as you were asking before, the residue of marijuana can be found in viscera, because the chemical science is so much advanced, we definitely can find it. But certainly when one piece is revealed, that need to be corroborated with the other pieces to make it a proof or evidence to place before the court of law. Now, as regards to this reconstruction, recreation of scene, the recreation, the creation of whose? The creation is already been made by Mumbai police. They draw the Panchanama, they draw the sketch, they have the photographs, and out of which CBI is trying to recreate the scene. Now, whole purpose of this exercise, which is well recorded under the video recorder, and all other witnesses, including Mumbai police officers, are also there. If this reconstruction creates corroboration with the record already established by Mumbai police, there won't be a problem. But in case of creating contradiction, there would be issue, and that issue of contradiction will divert the investigation of CBI towards the dimension of the suspected murder theory, homicide theory. Now, in this case, one should be very well understood about the whole gamut of investigation, because in this case, at very large scale, I, being a police officer, feel the conduct of witnesses, conduct of relatives, conducts of the alleged people and all other connected people will play a key role as regards to the person, the key smith, who said that there were people who called them, then they sent them photographs, or because it was a computer log.
How are the private detectives looking at this? Because there's a lot that the CBI officials can and cannot say. If you were brought in independently to examine all that's in the public domain so far, what according to you would be the key angles that need to be cracked for us to be able to solve this mystery about whether Sushant committed suicide or whether he was murdered?
See, the mind of a private detectives work with a different mechanism altogether, which is quite different from the police investigations. A private investigator go undercover, find out other things, they see the broader side of the whole conspiracy, other situation. All reconstructions and everything is a job of the police. They will carry out according to their qualification, experience, and the SOPs and the metrics. Now that's leave apart. But as for the investigation, as an investigator myself, the mind work like a mind detector, almost like a mind detector. You suspect, there is a mine almost close to your foot, and you take all precautions, then you start working on that. So the detective will work on that theory, I see something wrong around. He or she may not find the reason at the moment, but he will carry out reconstruct the whole thing in his mind and systems, and then draw a modus operandi, how to solve this. It's not a police investigation. It's a deep undercover investigation. One has to find a difference between the police investigation and investigation by a private investigator, which is always a indirect approach, totally. And as far as I am concerned, I applied my mind on whole situation. I see everything happening very minutely, how these people behave. And Bollywood is a drug junction. So people do take drugs and they become habitual of this. I don't think there is something very great about it if the marijuana is found and what has happened. But the main thing is that whether he committed suicide or he has been murdered. Now, what CBI is doing is the first, foremost, fundamental thing: reconstruction of the crime, and find the difference or anything what happened, what Delhi or Bombay police has done, and that was the beginning of the whole further investigation processes. So that is very important, how they carry out. No,
okay.
There are certain tools available for
Meghna, you've been tracking this case very closely. Are you hoping that there will be some kind of closure? Because we've seen, for example, in the Jia Khan case, we saw also in the Arushi Talwar case, when these mysterious deaths acquire a certain public imagination, space in public imagination, very often we don't find closure, we don't find the solution. Are you hoping the CBI team will be able to crack it? What are you making of everything we've seen so far, Meghna?
Rahul, I definitely hope so. I came on India Today around 3 weeks ago, and I remember saying that wait for cogent evidence to come out before, blaming certain people for Sushant's death. And I've always maintained that two lies do not make a truth. That, tall claims and conspiracy theories and allegations. Remember, in today's time, right now, there are bots at work who are trying to sway public opinion. There's also a huge irresponsibility on the part of some media companies, some outlets, who are picking up social media posts and WhatsApp messages and pretending that that's major news. There's such they're spreading such malfied information. They're highly prejudiced. They're also not allowing sane voices to prevail. So what we need to focus on right now is that maybe this is the time for public hysteria to kind of take it down a notch, allow a fair probe to take place, allow the CBI to look into all angles, let them investigate what actually happened, let people stop acting like experts, stop jumping to conclusions and conjectures, stop all that speculation, so that, let the truth come out, so that if you're a fan of Sushant Singh Rajput, let his soul rest in peace. Let the truth come out. I think this is the right time for that. We need to stop infantilizing, a 34-year-old male with all these theories that have come up. We also need to understand that the denial of mental health in our country is doing a great disservice to the entire nation. It's something that should have been dealt with in a nuanced and mature fashion, but look at the level of discourse that we have ended up reaching instead. It's really, really quite pitiful what I've seen in this particular case, how badly it has been conducted by the media.
Ganesh Shirvalkar, as a friend of Sushant Singh Rajput, somebody who spent time with him when this young bright man was alive, what do you make of what Neeraj is telling the Mumbai police, that Sushant Singh Rajput was given 3 joints just a couple of days before his death, and that when he came in, the glass in which these joints were lying had been cleaned out, suggesting that the joints had been consumed, and the reason they didn't barge in was because they thought maybe the boss is just cooked out and therefore or he's just smoked out and therefore he isn't opening the door. So what are you making of this?
As of now, I have been, I know the Sushant from the last 12 years, 11 to 12 years. As of now, Sushant will never do any kind of marijuana and all kind of anything. He can't do. He don't do in front of my eyes nothing, and he can't do this thing. He never addicted about this anything, any addiction. He doesn't have any addiction, first of all. And the other thing is that when we want to prove something, in Sushant's side or opposite of Sushant, we need two things same to same, a witness and the evidence, right? Hello?
No, sure. So as I said,
yeah, just some kind of person
don't approach this with any preconceived notions. We're not imposing our moral values on what was happening inside that household or not. This is a case that's now very clearly captured public imagination. We're tracking the story as we would any other, and we've not already decided and approached it with a predetermined mind. This is what happened, that this is murder or this is suicide. We'll keep tracking whatever the different dramatis persona are telling the Mumbai police and the CBI.
Yeah, it's not just that proves that there was some witness, some person has said that he smoked some marijuana or something. It's not proof that he's taking already. It's the CBI investigation or maybe in the
no, but as I think,
postmortem report.
I think as the CBI officer said that this is likely to emerge in the viscera sample, and therefore we will know whether this is true or not. This is what that cook is saying. We know on accord because we've seen the question and answers between him and the Mumbai police. So this is what, for what it's worth.
Is it in the marijuana is happened in the room or is in body?
No. So what the cook has said is that he gave three cigarettes to Sushant Singh Rajput and that they'd been cleaned out. Now whether he'd consumed them, not consumed them, as I said, unlike any other network, we're not jumping to conclusions. Hey, who are we to sit in on judgment on what he was smoking and what he...
As of now,
I am not supposed to give the proof. Please understand this. We're just journalists tracking this story. Okay, sure. But I'm saying in the way that you ideally shouldn't be certain. We're most certainly not certain. Okay, you're saying you're sure about it. We will see what happens. This is what the cooks told the Mumbai police. We're tracking that. We'll also see what the forensic experts come up with by themselves. And as Navneet Vasan says, in the glass where the cigarette sticks were kept, by doing a forensic examination of that, even if it's been cleaned out supposedly, the police and the CBI will be able to establish if there was marijuana kept there or not. So I want to thank our guests. As I said, it's not for us to jump to conclusions one way or the other. We're tracking the story as we would any other. Navneet Vasan, Meghna Pant, Ganesh Hirvarkar, Kumar Vikram Singh and Dhanraj Vanjari for joining me on the Newstrack. Thank you very much. I'll have more for you on this story when we come back on the other side for quick break. Stay with us.